What's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of NFT 365. And I am back joined by my fellow in the news, Jordache Johnson. Jordache is also kind of on the countdown for his Kansas City Chiefs to get a Super Bowl. And I think we might be one of the first NFT podcasts to potentially have a 2023 Super Bowl player as a previous guest.
Yes.
So Juju Smith-Schuster, ex-Steeler, a guest of the podcast. We've had two NFLers. We had Eric Ebron, and Juju on the pod. Jordache, how's it going? I know you're riding a Kansas City Chief high, and you have to beat the team from the right state on the wrong side, which, born and raised in Pittsburgh, my dad always told me Philadelphia is really in New Jersey, and we never really claimed them. So I'm rooting for the Chiefs for the Super Bowl.
Yes. Shout out to Juju. I hope he's healing right now so he can come back strong here in about 10 days. But man, you know what? Like, it's funny. You look back during the preseason, how many people were talking about the Chiefs ain't even going to win their division? The Chiefs ain't going to even make the playoffs. They traded Tyreek away. And I'm telling you, you got a man like Patrick Mahomes back there. He's going to make everybody better. And to be all jokes aside, we wouldn't be here if we would have ate that contract because our defense we wouldn't have had the players step up, the rookies step up, the people that we got to bring into the team. And so it was an awesome season to see where how everybody started stepping up. And man, oh man, look, guys, we're going back to the Super Bowl. It's going to be a tough game. I don't know if it's going to be the Andy Bowl. I don't know if it's a Kelsey Bowl. All I know is the Chiefs need to be winning that bad boy. So we'll see in 10 days.
Well, since I'm a pro here, the segue is that the NFL is rigged because the new thing to do in sports is when your team loses, you blame the referees. Now blaming the referees is no longer even enough. You now have to blame a conspiracy theory as if there is like this grandmaster orchestra in the back end that has all. I mean, holy cow! Don't get me when people can't accept responsibility for loss, even if there's questionable calls. I still get people when I say, yeah, I've been to a bunch of Steelers Super Bowls. They're like, oh, did you go to Detroit when it was against the Seattle Seahawks? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, he pushed off in the end zone. And I'm like, holy crap. Like people still, and the segue to that is in the Web3 NFT space, we are also we're pretty damn good at just finding stuff to complain about or finding stuff that like, if something changes and it works for one person, we don't like that change because it worked for that one person. But we also know this space is like, it's like a trend. I've never been, I'm an early adopter in so many areas. I've never been in an early adoption space that is so trend consuming at the same time of being trend hating, because within a 24-hour period, people were bashing every artist that's ever done an open edition collection. And then all of a sudden, everyone that was bashing them announced their own open edition collections. And we've had 300 open edition collections drop in like a matter of minutes. And then you had like the Porsche thing that was going on. And now, of course, Elon screwed up the reach on Twitter, which lets us all kind of, complain. And then we have like things like, people that are excited to have Amazon and Starbucks, and then people that are bitching because they don't want the brands here, but they want mass adoption. So like this episode is, I think we might just, it's like, is Web3 rigged, right? Like, it's the NFL version there, Jordache. But I think we'll get into some of these fun topics. I think part of this fun with this in the news piece is that, this, for those that are listening, we've been doing these every other week or just about, and part of it's just like, it's what Jordache and I were talking about anyhow. And now we get to kind of jam about it out here in these podcasting streets. But yeah, where do you want to start? Which one do you want to start of this rigged Web3 world?
Well, first off, if you haven't had a chance to get on Twitter and watch these memes around the NFT's rig or the NFL's rig with some of these players jumping in on this trend, it is hilarious. It is hilarious. But yeah, let's jump in. How about what do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about you brought up open editions. Let's talk about open editions here for a second, because I think it is something that's interesting. And while you were talking about that, it's funny because there's such a lack of abundance mindset just in this space where it's like if somebody else is getting something, that means I'm lacking and I'm losing. I'm not going to get it for myself, right? And so like that's a haterade that we see a lot in this space where we want to tear people down for doing something good, right? Versus celebrate them. And we've talked about this on podcasts before. And so there's at some point there's a mindset shift, right? That has to happen in this space where we have to understand that the pie is bigger for all of us to eat a lot of different food, and we can all win at the end of the day, right? Because when we kind of take a step out and kind of look at the overall, like if we look at Web3 as an industry, we're not even we're not even a blip on the map compared to you look at the global economy, right? So it's like we're fighting internally versus like crypto. Right. So like this is where you got to step outside your silo. If you're in the space, sometimes you just got to step outside and realize that, look, man, some of the stuff that goes on is just ridiculous. But yeah, when it comes to these open editions, man, it's funny because I feel like the argument is, hey, when there's a whole bunch of available, when there's not a set number of limits, it reduces the rarity, quote unquote, right? Or the exclusivity of it, right? Which is what's being valued. What NFTs are kind of the perceived value in a lot of these collections is, hey, it's rare. There's only one. There's only a full or a small amount, which we have to understand. There's so many different ways to perceive value, and rarity is just one of those, right? Shit, you can look at the rarity, third party rarity scores. Like they're all over the place. Which one are you going to go by? Who's going to be the right? Which one's rare? Which one's not, right? And then if you look at the traits, if you understand like traits or rarity of an NFT is all perceived off of a group decision at that point in time, right? This is all perceived value. So when we look at open editions, and if you're listening, you're not really sure what open editions are. Basically, it's like, look, there's an endless supply. There's available for a certain amount of time that is going to be minted. So you, instead of just having a 10,000 piece collection, it's going to be, hey, it's going to be open for 3 hours. Anybody can mint, and however many we sell in those 3 hours, that's how many are in the collection. One of the things I think about one, from like an artist perspective, I'm like, yo, like I don't see a problem with it, dude. If you have enough people that are going to want your work, sell it. Like benefit, give people what they want. From a buyer standpoint, don't worry. Like I would, like if I was investing or I was buying one of these things, I wouldn't worry about that specific collection. Once again, I'm more of the person that bets on the jockey, not the horse. So I'm like, look, if this is this artist's first drop, and I don't care if they sell 50,000 of them, by the time he's on drop 10, you know how valuable that first drop is going to be? Because there's still going to be a fixed supply, right? So like that's where I think it's short-sighted. I don't know what your thoughts are about that, man, but that's kind of where I go with it initially.
So there's a couple of things on it, right? I had somebody push back on Twitter, which I think is we'll have to circle back on, the abundance mindset, when people really only think about the return that they get when they sell something. Can an abundance mindset live in a world where that's like the end value, right? So that was someone on Twitter replied back. I wish I knew who that was off the top of my head. But the other piece of this, like, for one of the big arguments, because like I was confused as hell when this came out, right? Because the first thing that came to my mind was the free mint days, right? For those that weren't around in last summer, right? When Goblin Town dropped this free mint, all hell broke loose, right? All of a sudden, there was people that were like, this is great. There's a free entry point and people are removing that barrier. Then there were people that were like, this is horrible. Those people that like, how are we going to make money as a project? And I thought that was such an interesting piece. And so when I heard the open editions, I'm like, what's wrong? And then I tapped in. We have a, you and I have a very shared network of a lot of one-of-one art collectors. And funny enough, a lot of the hate or like the FUD was coming from people that own one-of-ones of really popular artists that believed that if this popular artist all of a sudden dropped one piece that was open edition for 24 hours and there was, let's say, 500 of them sold, that it would devalue their one-of-one. And I was so confused by this mindset because I was like, have you heard of Lamborghini? They have certain Lamborghinis that there's only 8 made of. There's other ones that are open supply for the year, right? Have you heard of sneakers? There are a lot of Jordans that we can all get. Then there's some Jordans that there's 200 of. Then there's 5 of that you only give, like we just saw, actually, I was just watching last night and James Harden walking into the stadium last night was literally wearing those Tiffany ones. There's only 5 of them. And the Tiffany, across some $50,000 shoe he's wearing. And the fact that Nike has those that are rare with limited option, the fact that they have Nike sitting on the store shelf does not devalue that. Like, it really connects people, right? If all of a sudden I didn't like Nike and I bought a $100 Nike, and then I figured out I really like Nike, the likelihood of me buying the $5,000 Nike is a lot higher. So if you're a one-of-one holder, what the hell is going on? Because if you believe the value is about more people valuing it, right? Supply and demand, you want more people to know this artist for what they create. And so I will tell you, like, it's very few times where I'm like, I was hopping into Twitter Spaces, like 3 or 4, and some of these are artists that, like, I mean, Amber, who's a big artist with, she did a bunch of stuff with VeeFriends, Brian Brinkman, who's from the podcast. Like, I was going in to like listen, and like even some of the artists, I believe, were taking a very definitely not a growth, not an abundance mindset approach.
Right.
They were almost like, it was like, it's the crazy gun control conversation, in my opinion, where it's like, let's not make one change because then everything's gonna be snowball. And you're like, hold on a second, like pump the brakes. Like if Drifter Shoots can get out an NFT that is one of his photos and increase the amount of people that understand who Drifter Shoots is and how great his photography is, it's going to increase the value. So I was really frustrated in like that whole conversation. But I do think it's an interesting, when I got the pushback on Twitter when someone said, Brian, like, it's because they only are thinking about that return, not as like a collector or holder. Because like when someone holds a sneaker and you're buying it for a good amount of money, you're not thinking about selling the sneaker in a year or 3 years, right? Like it's definitely going to go in a shelf for 10 years. Like it's going to be, I mean, the people that are selling the Jordans from 89 and 91 right now, or the Nikes, not the Jordans, pre-Jordan, but the Nikes that Jordan was wearing, like they bought them in 91 and kept them in a box because they knew if Jordan became Jordan, like it's worth it. So what's your take on that? Because it was really frustrating for me because like it was almost like they forgot how to think about collectibles. Like
and that's a crazy thing about that, right? And that's you're 100% right with the collectible standpoint, right? Like if you think about I'm when I grew up, right, we had baseball cards was big. I grew up, I was in elementary school when with the Pogs came out, where that was a big thing, right? We used to like all these things, and I'm sitting back and I'm like, damn, I probably lost a couple thousands of dollars because I opened the pack or because I didn't store them correctly or whatever it may be, right? But like, if you look at any sort of collectible, there's always a cycle. It's like they become hot, they go away, and all of a sudden there's going to be this nostalgia period where like people are going to want that stuff again, right? So like that's just from like a consumer behavior standpoint. From a value standpoint, I think the shoe example was spot on. Unless you're trying to flip stuff quick, which I would argue, why are you in the artist one-of-one space if you're trying to flip stuff quick anyways?
Exactly.
Like you're probably picking the wrong asset class, if I would argue. Like that's like there's a misalignment there, right? And as you were speaking, like I'm sitting here I'm thinking from the artist standpoint, right? Like you got to remember, like these guys don't get it twisted. Like we're trying to get away from this whole broke artist mentality, right? Like artists should be able to make a great living for the art and the value that they add into this world, right? And this, I think, Web3, NFTs, digital collectibles all give these guys an opportunity, these guys and gals an opportunity to do so. So when I'm sitting here thinking about this, if I'm looking at any other business, any online business or digital business, you have high ticket offers, you have middle ticket offers, and you have low ticket offers. Low ticket are for the masses. That is for people to give a taste of what you want, who you're about, come get to know who you are. And it's going to be, then you're going to be able to elevate people through your, we call it a value ladder, through your value ladder as they kind of move up, right? This is an opportunity for an artist to do that because somebody may not be able to afford a one-of-one art, right? But they're like, I like this style. I want to be a part of this community. So why shouldn't that artist give them the opportunity to come join their community and feel a part of their community with an open edition that may be free, that may be low ticket, whatever it is. And if I'm a high ticket holder, I should, like you said, I should be so excited that there is a bigger audience that knows this person, that I own a valuable piece, that they know who they are, because that just increases the demand, potential demand for my piece somewhere down the line when or if I decide to get rid of that. So the people, like, this is the thing that it's hard to separate, right? Because we're playing with money here. Like, let's be serious. Like the things that we're playing with money. People make and do irrational things with money. And here's the thing is, when you spend money, you're going to be very protective of that money. No matter what you say, no matter how you think, subconsciously, you're going to be like, how do I protect what I did? Because not only from a value standpoint, but also from a I don't want to look stupid standpoint that I invested money in something that I lost from a social standpoint, right? So like people become very, very selfish with like, I don't want this person in because it's going to devalue. It's like the HOA thing. I don't want this thing built next to me because it's gonna reduce the value of my house when it would probably be good for the greater good of the community, right? Like
Right.
it's that selfishness that we have to get rid of, because at the end of the day, if you hold that high piece, like who the hell are you to the artist? Let the artist run their business however they want to run their business. If you want to be a part of it, great. If you don't, get the hell out. You know what I'm saying? And so that's where. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The truth of the matter is artists have been doing this in this space. They just didn't call them open editions.
Right.
They would roll out
Right.
like, here's a 5,000 piece collection with each one of these being unique at a low price point to get people like Sabet, one of my favorite artists. He did the Tokyo Punks at a very low, like right now you can get into that and get one at, I think 0.03, 0.04. But I will tell you, a majority of his 101s are 1 ETH, 5 ETH, 8 ETH, 10 ETH. And I will tell you, like for me, I can send somebody a Tokyo Punk because I have many of his 101s that are going to be more valuable, right? And this goes back to like that, like, and that's also tied in because open edition, like the time allotment, right? Like this space is very, we almost forget, like we had like the time allotment era when I first got in this space, right? That was the summer of 2021. And then it went to this weird Dutch auction, which every Dutch auction one screwed up. Every one of them thought they could do a Dutch auction. I messed up a couple of times and bought into some Dutch auctions that I should have never got into. And for those that don't know, Dutch auction is just, those that buy first buy at a higher amount and it goes down over time, but like it'll sell, like, so you have to like guess when it's going to like all of a sudden flood the market. Which was funny because that's how good we were living at that time, where people were like, this shit's selling out too quick. Like, let's start at 4 ETH and start scaling it down because we don't want to sell it for not enough. But it also ties into like, part of the reason people were doing free mints was they wanted to prove that they were delivering value and utility in a world that pretty much people have been paying and then realizing they didn't. And so I do want to give a shout out to CPG and Chris Cantino, because they looked at the open edition craze and said, wait a second, what if we do open editions and we do them on Manifold, which, I'd love to see that they use Manifold, which we talked about in a previous episode. I did a marketplace review and I love what Manifold's kind of rolling out. But they rolled out a white and a dark and a white NFT. And what they're doing with them is if you hold, like, so those of us that hold CPG, we could get one of them early. It was a free mint. You pretty much paid gas. And then you could actually gift that to anyone that doesn't hold a CPG. They could go authenticate to the Telegram and get 2 weeks full access to the community before it was timed out, which sounds like a low ticket offer to get somebody in to see what's going on behind the curtains.
100%.
And for me, I amplified. I mean, it was retweeted, it was shared everywhere. I bought 4 of them myself, gifting one. Shout out to Leslie on our team, because I was like, Leslie, you in CPG? She's like, no. I was like, I'm gonna send one of these to your wallet, jump in, test out the waters for 2 weeks. Because I will say, like, when Proof Collective first launched, I had a chance to get it at 1 ETH. I said no. Genius. It went to 5 ETH, and I was like, you know what? I think I got that. I might pull the trigger. But no one could really give me the experience of what was behind Proof, and I was a little like, man, that's a lot of money. And so I didn't pull the trigger on Proof. And I don't even care. Like, yeah, it blew up for all kinds of money. But if they would have had some kind of entry point that gave me a 1 week or 2 week thing, I would have been in that in a heartbeat. Now that I know on that side. So CPG took it and ran. We did see some other artists that have done a really good job of like, hey, I'm gonna do some open editions and I'm gonna do some burn mechanisms with them, right? So we're gonna open it up and you can have all these, but then I'm gonna give people incentives that if you burn 6 of your open editions, you can get the one of my 101s, you can get like early access to one of my 101s and that side. So like the other part that we just have to remember is like the creativity around smart contracts. Right now we're using 0.5%. And so to your point, like not only do we have to get over ourselves from like this like selfish non-growth mindset, financially locked in, wanting our instant return, but we also have to like, stop watching the floor. Like if the floor dips on 101s, it's because like some people are looking at it as like, hey, there's a tension and I can exit, right? Because maybe they have to pay bills or pay taxes or whatever. But if you were someone that bought that 101 for a 3 to 5 year return, stop looking at the floor before the 3 to 5 years. Like, get the hell off of these apps that are, because I think that's also what's like causes this is like, because we saw that with who was it? Not Doodles, Cool Cats. You know, like their floor dipped with their move to Flow, and part of it was because truthfully, there's a lot of people that don't know how to do anything other than ETH, and so there's some people that get scared because they're like, I don't know, even though Flow is about as user friendly as humanly possible, and so like, if you don't understand the nuances of what drives like instant evaluation or short-term evaluation, stop looking at short-term evaluation. Because I fired back to like 2 or 3 people in our community, and I know your listeners, and I'm not calling out my names, but that were challenging me back on it. And I was like, why? You told me you bought that piece for 5 years. One person said they bought it to give to their kids when their kids get married, and their kid's not a teenager yet. Yet they're worried about the price today. Like,
right. And that's it just goes back to like when I invest in stocks, right? I'm investing in companies where I don't expect that money for 3 to 5 years. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason why I don't check it every single day, right? But it's the same thing. If I'm going to invest in something, I'm going to invest in long-term, which I should have done my research and stop looking at short-term fluctuations, because that's just going to drive you crazy. Like, there's no value in doing that unless you're getting ready to sell, right? I don't care what it's up. I don't care what it's down, because it doesn't matter. It's all paper gains or paper losses until I actually hit the button. One thing this to circle back real quick with Manifold, and CPG, like what they did, it's like, this is what I want people to realize. This is nothing like brand spanking new. They just use this cool new technology to leverage this. This is a free trial, but this is basically using your audience, which is always your best customer or your best marketer is people in your community, using them as the ability to be able to shout out and be able to give people a free trial into the community. It will be interesting to see how many potential new members they have over these next 2 weeks, or after this 2-week kind of trial gets burned up. But we're both in CPG, full transparency. I think it's an amazing community, and I will, like, what Chris is doing is it's good. It's going to be a cool use case, and I promise you, if it works, you're going to see more and more and more of this, because it's a great model. And it's funny enough, side note with Manifold, after I was playing around with this, I was looking at what Chris was doing at CPG, and I'm like, funny enough, there's this funny little picture that we put together in this little group, in this group that I'm in, trade group that I'm in, that I minted my first NFT last night using Manifold, right? As a fun joke for the community. But I was like, let me just see what's going on here. Yes. So it was like a couple clicks here, a couple clicks there, did a little test net. And I was like, cool. And that's how easy it is, what surprised me, which was awesome about this, was we need to, these key pieces of these ecosystem need to get to a point where somebody can pick this up, click a couple buttons. Next thing you know, they have something on the blockchain. Next thing you know, so we can just get focused on what are the things that actually matter, which is building an audience, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. So like, that was cool for me to experience with Manifold. So definitely want to give a shout out to them. And I know you're a fan of them as well. But going back to what CPG is doing, man, it's going to be fun to watch what is the result of this, because of course this is a smart business test, right? That's all marketing is, should be experiments. And Chris and his team are running an experiment right now, jumping on a trend and running an experiment. And we'll see how it affects the community, which I'm, if you want to use a word, bullish about it. I think it's going to be a cool little opportunity, because like you said, you really don't get a test or a free trial in the NFT space when it comes to any sort of community, right? And so this could be a model that we could leverage moving forward.
And it is kind of funny that we don't do the free trial. Like, the whole model,
right.
Like,
it works.
And the other piece of this is, like, for everyone that's listening, is like, well, we could do that in Web 2. Remember that there's an element of managing a back end and front end, customer service, this ridiculous sign up with a credit card, someone cancels it 30 seconds before they get charged for their credit card. Like, all these nuances that anyone that's done any free trial, anything, is a pain in the ass. Like, it's horrible in this realm. It's this NFT unlocks it for this amount of time. And in the contract, it'll just say, after this date, that contract, that anyone that has that token in their wallet no longer has access. It is as cut and like, so like the back end elements of this like version are pretty much mitigated. The other thing that allows it is that someone can still own a token that they used it, where you could then add burn elements on it, where everyone who actually cashed in their NFT for that 2 weeks maybe they're going to have a way for them to get in at a different price point or a different way. Like you can really start incentivizing your fans. So I think it is a genius move. And, it kind of ties in, I love that you brought up Manifold, right? Because Manifold a year ago was like what the OGs would throw Manifold, because like the name dropping, platform dropping nonsense that exists in this space is really ridiculous, right? Or if someone wants to sound smart on a Twitter space, they'll say like, because we use Manifold. And I remember like when I first heard someone talking about it, I'm like, man, they must be a developer, like badass. And I remember I went to the very first, and I was like, oh, this is a lot going on here. I got to get an ASCII. I got to go on a telenet, testnet. I got to change wallet. There was a lot going on.
Right.
Funny enough, now, and I'm so glad you got to experience it, it really, because like before people like just go mint on OpenSea or go hire someone to create a Manifold contract or hire someone to build another contract. And just breaking news for everybody, a majority of people in 2022 that were getting hired to build a contract for somebody were building it in Manifold. And a couple of people I called out because they charged people that I know a ridiculous amount of money. And I went into the contract. I'm like, that's a Manifold contract. I know what you did there. But with that being said, part of the craziness and why Manifold exists, for those that aren't familiar, like Manifold prior to was just a smart contract creator and kind of open source where people could build apps that you could plug in. Like I used a couple of their apps before. Then recently they added a studio component. So now Manifold has their own little marketplace. But let's face it, Jordache, there was a time where we were in, every week or every couple of weeks was a new marketplace. And it was like, originally it was new marketplaces on all the different blockchains, right? And as someone that's minted on as many blockchains as I have, I've seen them all. But there also became a run on every exchange. FTX had a marketplace. For those that don't remember, FTX had an NFT marketplace. Very little, very, very little used. The very first, I would say, ETH competitor marketplace that was PFP focused was Looks Rare, but there was always, when I first got in the space, Rarible was around, Foundation was around, but these were kind of they had a little bit niches to them. But you and I both were, I remember a lot of our conversations were like, wow, Coinbase got one, crypto.com has one. We saw even the likes of gem.xyz, and there started to be a lot of the marketplaces. Well, breaking news that's happened in the last 24 hours. One of the, my favorite exchange, without question, my personal individual favorite exchange, and I'm a big Brian Armstrong fan, CEO of Coinbase. They made a pretty big announcement that they are shutting down Coinbase NFT. And you can actually go back and find the episode when they came out. I was impressed, and I had some things that I wanted to see them actually kind of implement, but there were some things that existed. And I will also say, I just don't like OpenSea as being the 100-pound. We need competition. Let's be very clear, because we can't force them to do crap other than just take their giant percentage and money and not really innovate on the back end. Which I'm not fighting OpenSea because I don't know enough about their business side. But Coinbase popped up, Crypto.com popped up. We had GameStop popped up, right? We have. I think there was probably at one point 12 new marketplaces last year that were legit Ethereum players.
They had the brand behind it, right? They had a brand behind it.
So what's your take on Coinbase? Because this hurts their Coinbase coin, right? This also hurts their brand. They have the Coinbase wallet, which isn't the Coinbase wallet, but it is the Coinbase wallet because it's separate. And then the Coinbase NFT marketplace, just to be clear as well, up until 2 months ago, you could not connect to it via Coinbase Exchange. They kept it very church and state. When I saw that they folded the button in and it existed exchange, my first thought was ooh, they're going all in with the Coinbase NFT marketplace. We're going to see that for a long while. I might be a futurist, but I'm not a perfectionist. I got this one wrong. I did not have that on my bingo card in the first month of this year. Coinbase NFT shutting down their NFT marketplace. What's your take?
I feel like we need to pour one out for the Coinbase NFT marketplace, pour one out for our homies. But here's the funny thing is, their stock price didn't care today. It jumped up over 20%. No, but all jokes aside, that's because the federal lawsuit got dismissed against them for the securities thing, which is a good thing. But no, going back to the marketplace, they were always battling uphill. I don't know how they like when they launched. I think it was kind of joking around. I think they had like 150 people or whatever it was on right when they launched, right? But there was like a big buildup, but it just like it flopped right off the back. And I don't know what that drop was, but I feel like they never recovered from that. The thing you said that was probably the most important thing is we so desperately need competition in this space, because you won't FUD OpenSea. I will FUD the hell out of OpenSea because they are sitting on the top of a hill right now, sitting fat, collecting fees for no dang reason, and not doing anything from an innovation standpoint. Like this is why there's these new marketplaces, I would argue, keep popping up, because it's like, well, OpenSea sucks at this. Let's go build a marketplace that actually can excel with this stuff, right? But they there's not enough momentum to be able to drive people up. Because if you think about it, think about it from take a zoomed out approach. How much volume is down in OpenSea compared to last year, right? So the user base, even on OpenSea, has dropped drastically. So now if I launch a new marketplace, I got to try to siphon people over to this marketplace to be able to make it to make it survive. So I don't think we have enough volume in the space to support all these marketplaces anytime soon. But it sucks that Coinbase couldn't figure it out. And I don't know. I'm a big Brian Armstrong fan, and I got friends that work at Coinbase, and I'm just sitting here. I'm like, you guys have the resources. I don't know what happened here. I don't know if it's spreading themselves too thin. I don't know what what was going on behind the scenes, but no one has been able to take users away from OpenSea right now, unfortunately. And that's allowed OpenSea to have terrible customer service. Their policies around stolen NFTs and all this stuff is trash. Their royalty fiasco, trash. All like it's just, I'm not a fan, but we have to use it, right? That's because that's where most of the volume's at from a marketplace standpoint, right? We'll talk about something here in a few minutes that I think hopefully is going to be a competitor to that. But I look at today, and it sucks that Coinbase is not going to be a player in this space, but at the same time, like you said, I'm a fan of their exchange. I've had a Coinbase. This is probably one of the first crypto exchanges that I probably opened an account with early on in my journey.
The first one I did.
Right. And so from a business standpoint, if it's not going to work, I'm glad they're pulling the plug when they're pulling the plug. And let's divert those resources to something to make whatever you're focused on now even better, right? Which is the exchange, which is the wallet, whatever it may be. I think I would love to get your take on this. You know, we don't need a huge amount of marketplaces right now, because like I said, there's not enough volume to support that. But I'll personally I like Blur. I'm using Blur a lot right now, purely from the standpoint of, because I just don't like OpenSea, and I just don't like how they do business. And I think they sit back fat and lazy right now because they know they don't need to innovate, because they are the category king at this point in time. But we know what's going to happen. Somebody's going to knock them off if they keep staying stagnant, which is going to be fine for me personally. But I don't think they are earning the 2% on each transaction that they are charging right now.
So I agree with that part of it. I'm not so confident that someone's going to knock them off, because I believe this plays into the eBay days. And I look at Blur as the Craigslist, and we needed Craigslist, and we all needed Craigslist to challenge PayPal. But at the same time, the everyday user, my dad, my mom, sure as hell, when they got on Craigslist, it scared the hell out of them. Right? And if you bring a new user,
still had the same user interface to today.
Yeah, I know. And it had the same interviews from 1997. eBay, Amazon, they all had that same, GoDaddy, they all had the same one. Craigslist kept it. And if I sent somebody new to Blur today,
the hell out of them.
No, they're like, is it what tech? It's literally like a advanced exchange. And to be very clear, I'm also a Blur fan. I was actually on that this morning, right? Like I prefer, I like listing. I also like cross listing. Right. But here's the piece where we're going to wrap up the marketplace conversation. So Coinbase being very funded and very well, kind of locked in as the exchange, in my personal opinion, right? They had the advantage because they were still playing on ETH, right? Crypto.com, I own a lot of Crypto.com NFTs, but they're on Crow, and there's a lot of weird nuances there.
Right.
But there's one that I just wanted to bring up that happens to be there's OpenSea is the Jordache and I are both holding them up for camera versions, but the OpenSea version of hardware in this space, where there is literally one And then there's some people that like you usually mention like Tezos as if you're like like you're sneezing because it's like, oh, did you get a Ledger or a Tishers? Like, and you know, no, I'm not fudding Tezos. I'm just saying when people like hardware wallet, kind of like Tissues has been replaced, like right, like Tissues is a brand or Coke, like Ledger is replaced, right?
100%.
Now, Ledger has a marketplace.
Yes.
And to your point on like what did Coinbase do wrong? Like I believe Coinbase's the feature set and their vision of what that marketplace was going to look like, I believe was awesome. But they rolled it out before any of those features existed, and all of us that got over there were like, "What? Like I can't even transfer in your marketplace right now. Like even my most basic task I can't do.
Yep.
Why am I going to go back in there?" And I will tell you the other part that scares me is like, how does someone like Looks Rare or Blur, right? Which we both know, you know, and Pac-Man from Blur. I reached out to him. We tried to get him on the podcast.
Nice.
And I know, you know, Looks Rare team. I still check it. Like, what's going to keep them alive, right? Because like to your point, like because like if eBay is going to be eBay, which is OpenSea being OpenSea, like you need that competitive. And you know, Facebook Marketplace is technically like a disruptor now for like the eBay version, but eBay came out what 23 years ago, from a, you know, probably longer than that, 26 years ago. Jesus, we're old. So my funny thing, the first thing that came to my head when Coinbase NFT was canceled was actually not about me worrying about Coinbase because I love the exchange and I was okay with the NFT part of it being dismantled. But I was a little bit instantly concerned, like, oh no, Ledger hasn't really kept the foot on the pedal for their marketplace. And I love everything they're doing. I love their team. I love their vision. I love their products. I love their customer service. I like their individual tools that they have. Like, and they literally, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, they are the number one brand in this space. Like in the Web3 space, when I look at a brand that has done everything in my book correctly, it is Ledger. And truthfully, there's no sponsorship here yet. We had their senior VP on, Ariel was on the podcast during season 1. For those that want to check that out, you know, I am an owner of 5 of them. I think we both own the Ledger marketplace, NFTs as well. Yep. But okay, so like as we wrap this in the marketplace, are we going to let's throw out like the crypto.coms that are on other exchanges, because that's just another, like Magic Eden is playing in a weird, and Magic Eden might actually be the competitor on ETH that we might be the hidden competitor that sneaks in. But what's your take on, let's say Ledger, GameStop, Looks Rare, and Blur? If we looked at those 4 as like very ETH heavy PFPs, a year from now, and let's say we stay the rest of the year in this bearish kind of flat market side by side, do any of the 4 of them still have a marketplace come this time next year?
That's a great question. I would argue the one that I could see dropping it would be Ledger, because that's not their main business.
Yep. And their other business is killing it.
It's killing it. And Ledger is a hardware wallet. Like that is the brand. Like when you say I need a hardware wallet, I need a Ledger, right? That's going to be synonymous with that if it's not already in the space. And obviously I'm a huge fan of them. So I can see them. I can see that one being, if there was going to be one going away, I would see that one more likely than the other ones, which I hope they don't, because like you said, as Genesis pass holders, I really hope they run with it, right? But I can see how it could drive attention away from their core business model. So I think a lot of it's going to be from an economy. As long as their core business is thriving, I don't think there's going to go anywhere, because I see there's so much synergy between being a hardware wallet provider and a marketplace, and the security you could create between. That's software hardware play, right? That's an Apple play in a sense, right? Like you could do some very cool stuff if you want to be focused on that. So I think they have a huge potential. I would say I agree with what you're saying with Blur. Like I'm probably biased because I'm a big fan of Blur, and I loved personally I love their feature sets and what you can do, but I loved how they were attracting users and pulling users away from OpenSea or other marketplaces, but doing it in a way where they are training us with rewards on what they want us to do. which will drive volume, right? With their little boxes and things like that. I was like, this should be a case study in itself, how to launch a software
and
tool.
they built for 9 months before bringing
Right.
it to market. They
Right.
also hired like literally Stanford engineers, and like the VC that they got involved with that brought a lot of that to light was legit a digital player like in this space. Like, so like,
Right.
you're right. Like, all of those things. And also we have to give, a little kudos to Looks Rare in a way of like when they launched, I fudded them when they dropped, because it felt like a bunch of bored apes that were trying to make a marketplace and that were like, hey, we're the cool kids with the old. And I didn't expect them to keep building and innovating. I think even a podcast episode, I gave Looks, and I had to apologize. It was like 2 months later when I got in the back end of their reward system and how they were giving money back to creators. And I was like, ooh, and they've stuck it through. Like I haven't heard any, really any noise, positive or negative, which take it or leave it on that. But I'm with you on Blur. And we'll see a couple weeks from now, for those that aren't familiar, Blur is going to do an airdrop of a token, which we haven't had one of those in a long while, right? The bear market that many of us kind of were lucky to play into, a lot of that was exploded because we got these airdrops of free tokens. And I cashed in on all of them, right? I mean, that was even when I go back and look at my transactional history, I'm like, what the hell was I doing buying that? And it was the gas airdrop that I had got that was, and I turned that in and I got like 4 ETH just based on my transaction history. Like, So I'm with you on, I hope for Blur, but
here's the thing is though, with what you said about them though is key though, is that is going to be a more user interface for advanced users, if you want to call it that way, because there is that intimidation factor with getting used to how like all the stuff going on. And I think I saw just the other day when I logged in, you can actually customize what it looks like and what you want to show if you're a trader or you're a holder, whatever it is. So I think they're fully aware of that. But I think that's going to be that and this is why I think people underestimate the UX UI components of tools in this space so much, because just the look and feel can give a perception of, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to do this, to, oh my gosh, this is simple, right? Even just the white background versus a black background, right? Yep. OpenSea seems clean and friendly, and versus a black kind of seems like, rugged, and it's like more degen if you want to think about it. Like this is more advanced. And, right. So that's where it's like, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that, but I don't see any of those unless the economy just completely just goes downhill. I don't see any of them going away. I'm not as familiar with Looks Rare. I've done a little bit on that. So I just haven't. I don't know much about them to comment on that. But I would say, going back to the original question, I think they're gonna be around, but I just don't know. If volume picks up, there's gonna be multiple of them that are gonna thrive. But like you said, I don't know any of those people I don't know what Catalyst meant that would allow them to take the place of OpenSea as a market leader right now. I think it's gonna have to be a brand that's bigger than OpenSea to come in here with a marketplace that has at least these core functional features that we are used to using right out the gate, and then also be able to onboard a whole bunch of new people, because I don't think they're going to steal enough people currently using OpenSea. I think it's going to be the new batch of people coming into the space that they can get trained on a new platform that will give OpenSea a competition.
Which, let's face it, Reddit, for those that know the Reddit NFT, like most people that own a Reddit NFT have no idea what OpenSea is. Nope. Not whatsoever, which Reddit kind of plays at. I see something like a Shopify, like would be really interesting, because like we are all so familiar with our e-commerce experience. And just before I mention where the next one is, where we're going to go, I did that episode a couple weeks ago on like the 4 art marketplaces that I had to that I've dropped art on. I was given 7 other Ethereum art marketplaces that others in this space that are serious users are also using. So we just talked about like the 5 that are PFP kind of focused. There's like another 11. I was overwhelmed trying to figure out where to sell my freaking art. And so like, I do think we're going to have like a little bit of like this interesting, like super niche. And like a couple of them have done a pretty good job of being like Zora versus like super rare. But I think the other part of this is like OpenSea presented itself as the Amazon of all of this space, right? But speaking of Amazon, there was some
Yes.
Amazon news. And let's face it, you and I talked about like there's like 4 brands that if they make news, like Walmart saying that they went all in with metaverse was pretty big news because it's Walmart.
Yep.
I mean, Walmart is
Yep.
Walmart is Walmart.
Yep.
And then we know Apple was playing in the AR VR space. We
Yep.
also know damn well that their roadmap includes a lot of things that are going to kind of play into this software emerged, Web3 world. But
Right.
Amazon making noise. Fill us in on what the Amazon noise was. And
Yeah.
this could be a big disruptor, and even to OpenSea.
I'm telling you, when we start messing with, when these FANG companies come in, like I tell you guys, this is they could come in here and reshape a market real quick, right? And what I want to talk, we're going to talk about that in a second too, of just the perception of these big brands coming in here. But what, if you guys haven't been, or if your listeners right now, if you haven't paid attention, basically there's rumors Amazon has been in the works of coming out with an NFT initiative, right? And they're starting to dabble into the Web3 space, and this is going to be one of the first areas to start dabbling into. And word on the street right now is around the April timeframe, there should be an announcement potentially coming out. This is what's been kind of put out there over the last couple of days. But what's fun about this is we don't really know the direction, right? There's been talking around NFT games that they're going to be coming out with in this thing, right? There's going to be potentially an exchange or a marketplace. And I think once again, this is them dipping their toes into this space, because I mean, these guys are doing hundreds of billions of dollars a year, right? Like, and I mean, hundreds of billions of dollars a year. And you think about the areas that Amazon can impact. So we'll talk about the marketplace for a second. What's Amazon very, very good at? They're very, very good at building a marketplace. They've probably built the biggest one in mankind history right now.
And to be clear, they're a bookstore. They were a bookstore that became the biggest, that mastered the art of marketplace.
Right. So they understand how to be that middleman. They know how to buy buyers and sellers and bring them together, right? There's going to be so much stuff that they could crush OpenSea on the principles of building a marketplace if they wanted to come be that 100-pound gorilla that OpenSea's probably not even aware of the problems that they even going to be facing as this starts scaling up. Because remember, like, we're still in an infancy from a market size standpoint. We're not talking scaling to where OpenSea's doing hundreds of billions of dollars a year. Like,
you put OpenSea's total amount into the Amazon ecosystem, and it's like 1/50th of their It's like, oh, that's just department whatever Z in North Dakota that they have, right? Like that's where
right. Right. So that's where, like, going back to what we were just talking about, if you got a brand like this with expertise in understanding how to build marketplaces with the resources, and Amazon is very well known to do loss leaders all day long, coming here and do things at a loss to grab market share, because they understand long way down the line, they're going to be printing money with this, right? Yep. So they understand. And if you talk about any business model, when you can be the man in the middle or the woman in the middle, aka the platform, that is the most valuable position to be in any sort of business model, is that person that is that bridge, that is that middle land, right? So being a marketplace is a very good, lucrative opportunity. And so if Amazon's going to jump in this space with the NFTs, number one, we've talked about this in future episodes, we should all be standing on our chairs. We're giving a round of applause, because this is just telling us proof that we are, the market sucks right now, but I'm telling you, we are going to be in a very good position, because this is not going away anytime soon with brands like this. So that's number one. But then number two, we need competition, like we were just talking about. So I don't care if it's Amazon, I don't care if it's I don't care who it is, bring competition, because that's going to light a fire underneath OpenSea to say, oh crap, now we got to do better. Because I guarantee you, Amazon will wipe them from this industry in a couple years if Amazon decides to, and OpenSea does not continue to innovate on this space. Now, go ahead.
Real quick on that, because I've been an Amazon influencer. I have an Amazon storefront. I was actually one of the first 13 Amazon influencers way back. It was 2014. Yeah, I've been in their ecosystem. Back then, we got a whole really good percentages. My percentage now is like 20 cents on $200. But there was a day where I was pulling in a really good amount of money for people that went to my storefront and bought the podcast microphone or bought what they bought.
Nice.
But I will tell you, they've been adapting the back end of this influencer program for 7 or 8 months in ways that didn't make sense to me. And when I heard this announcement, I was like, because one of the things that we both know is like, how do you improve like affiliate marketing and influencer marketing in a space that, let's face it, like Amazon knows people trust people.
Yep.
Like, and we also know that reviews aren't always the thing, right? So like, if you can go to a review and see like a video, like I have a bunch of friends like on Black Friday. Oh my God, every one of them are doing 24-hour live streams because they get a really good amount of money from Amazon to do that. Imagine if they blockchained that and they awarded their influencers NFTs that you could give out to your audience. It would no longer be a link or a code, and they could actually track dark social. They could really embrace a version of, not only we could go soulbound token, we go NFT token.
Right.
And that's not even mentioning, just to be clear, majority of the people that are listening to this podcast, the NFT art that you are holding lives on Amazon.
Yes, AWS.
It sits on AWS Web Services. And many people are like, oh no, my NFT is on the blockchain. Your NFT token might be on the blockchain. But the art that's on the front, unless it's been locked, which a lot of them were not. Bored Ape was not locked for 9 months, I believe, after they minted. Right. That is just sitting on an AWS server that, let's face it, Amazon, we've seen this happen with like the Microsoft Apple days, right? Whenever competition comes in, it's like, oh, we're just going to increase the price of using that AWS services, or we're not going to let anybody store data that's pointing to an OpenSea.io address, right? Like, that's there as well. And then the other player I'll throw in here is that, we hear a lot about OpenAI. Of course, we love talking about AI.
Yep.
Microsoft being like the 10 billion man person gorilla in there. They are also a player in live streaming, a player in gaming, a player in entertainment, a player in tech. Watch. Amazon flexes, I guarantee you get a Microsoft flex at a level that nobody sees coming, right? Because
and I agree with that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
Because I was gonna say this, and this makes so much sense of when they pulled the plug on oh my gosh, Minecraft. When they pulled the plug on being able to build on top of that on the so like Microsoft's making a play for this. But one of the things you said, I want to hone in on with Amazon, with AWS, this runs 90% of the internet. 90, and that's where they make a majority of the revenue. Amazon comes from AWS. That's why your Amazon speaker is $89, because they take like a $200 loss on every one of them, because they know that you're using Amazon Web Services to host the content on the back end, and they make all their money. And they're breaking it in, right? Just like Microsoft sells Xboxes at a loss because they know they're going to make all the money back on games and all in the virtual world. So with Amazon, with AWS, so right now we're just talking about Amazon playing in the NFT potential space, or being able to host, while you were talking about the images, or being able to place in the marketplace. When Amazon decides to jump into a blockchain, it's gonna be a whole nother ball game. You think like there is nothing stopping them from developing their own L1 blockchain right now, right? And because they want to own the infrastructure to this Web3 space. I guarantee they want their hands in that Web3 infrastructure. Because once again, they want to be able to control majority of this and have their hands. And that's a very back-end stuff is one of the most valuable places. Middle and back, you can make a lot of money on infrastructure side of things, right? Because then you're just going to have you're paying those tolls. People are paying tolls to use your tools, right? And I know they were working with Avalanche, if I remember correctly. They did some partnership with Ava Labs over there. And I don't know if they're going to partner with somebody or not. But what's exciting is somebody like an Amazon, for me personally, is the amount of resources that they're going to start playing just in this whole ecosystem that we're playing in is going to be ungodly. But I 100% agree with you with Microsoft. Microsoft's like the sleeping giant, I feel like, right over here. They're kind of staying quiet. They're sitting back. Yes, they made some noise with the chat or the OpenAI investment, the 10 billion or 13 billion, whatever it was. But goodness gracious, when they start messing with that, like you said, that gaming side of things, with the streaming side of things, when they integrate, and I'm gonna say when they integrate ChatGPT into Bing, and they start going after Google search, like we want this competition. Google's been the category king for decades. Bring this and bring this, use this technology to bring some new competition. But going back to Amazon real quick, one of the things that also I think we're overlooking that we saw with with Reddit, you want to talk about onboarding users? You know who has 200 million people in a membership right now? You think Starbucks is cute with their 27 million membership? Let's talk about Amazon Prime
10X.
for a second.
Yeah, 10x Starbucks.
Right. So now you think about this. You're developing an NFT, you're developing a marketplace, or I love what you said about the initial or the influencers and the affiliate marketing stuff. Now we're going to have access to 200 million people that we could be able to drop NFTs to come purchase NFTs, to reward people with NFTs like Starbucks is doing, whatever it may be. They have a huge user base already built in. So this is what I'm saying. Like Amazon, just them dipping their toes is going to be something super exciting to watch, to see how it plays out. And remember, Amazon's not afraid to invest and take losses for a long periods of time, right? They don't, their shareholders are not like Facebook shareholders who, I think I just saw Facebook lost $13 billion last year on the Reality Labs, right? Amazon's be like, okay, that's cool. Where else we going? Like that's where, and the guy, Andy, I can't remember his last name, the CEO who took over for Jeff, he's been in this space for a little bit. He understands this space for a little bit. So like there's a lot of stars aligning over here in this Amazon space that this is going to be fun. But I now that you say that, I'm super excited. I've never been a big Microsoft fan, but I see these little moves that they're making over here, and it's going to be exciting watching them try to tie all this together with gaming, with entertainment, with streaming, and they have their Azure, their cloud computing, right? So like they're going to be,
Let's face it, every one of those Amazon, Amazon Web Services, right? Like all of those cloud computing, there's hardware, and then the software that's running a majority of the servers that run the internet run this little software called Microsoft. And I know for many of us, we all switched into Apple, and we're all like swimming in the Apple, and people are like, man, that Xbox life must be good because that's what's paying those Microsoft. That's not what's paying those Microsoft bills. Like and if you think about it too, like in this like whole like evolution into blockchain, right? Like, and there'll be people that, we can quote this episode 4 years from now. And people are like, they weren't NFTs. Amazon's issuing digital receipts to Amazon influencers because you can now just send digital receipts or whatever the hell. The concept is token ownership on the blockchain, and these players are going to be there. But let's also kind of tie in our last topic here, because with all this excitement, and we play in the early adoption space, we love a lot of these arenas. You and I think we default to be marketers first. We kind of like lean into that. Like we can't help it. Like I'm watching that TV show, The Last of Us, and I'm like, Jesus, like whoever marketed that thing is HBO, like just tip our hat. Like, I mean, every other streaming platform, they come. But Sunday night TV for since The Sopranos, when I was in college, has literally been the king hoobah. But the funny thing about all of these time, right, all these spaces, there's been one thing that has always bothered me and has always really screwed up every place it's ever went. And it's called giveaways. Freaking giveaways. Every version of every giveaway anything in every digital format, in every physical format. Let's face it, as soon as a store wants to give away something, every person that's never shopped at that store is going to wait out in line and going to be a mile long. And there's been you could go back, 50 episodes where I complained about, unethical decisions and things that people were doing as far as giveaways in this space. But we had some really interesting news last night kind of get exposed. And I wouldn't say it came as a surprise, but it did come as more of like we knew it, but I'm not sure we expected it to be exposed, that there was, someone called it a cabal. I'm not going to go as far as to say it's a cabal.
Hey, did we start this with conspiracy theories about things being rigged? All of a sudden, we got some proof that things were some rigged.
The truth of the matter is the NFL is not rigged. The Web3 space is not rigged. Your NFT giveaways that you've been participating in are rigged. Let's just be very clear. That's where the rigging is for anyone that's anyone's wondering, because it's been exposed that we knew that there was definitely, anyone that looked at the smart because this is the thing, this is funny. What they're taking advantage of is that giveaways are not done on chain. Let's just be very, because what happened to this same thing that we're going to talk about, the same mechanics existed a year and a half ago, and it got squashed so quickly because we could look on the contract and say, hey, all of these same wallets are pumping and dumping, are buying NFTs and dropping them because we could see everything on the chain. Well, all of a sudden, giveaways on Twitter and on Discord became the thing, right? We're gonna have everybody jump into our, retweet this, follow this, do 3 jumping jacks, kiss your sister, and then you get a chance to win the giveaway, whatever that may be. Well,
right.
The truth of the matter, it was exposed that there was a whole group of people, let's just call it an agency, that would be hired for a very high price that would not only help you maximize exposure of your giveaways, but they would, because there was projects that was like, man, this project came out of nowhere, and they got 700 retweets on that giveaway. Like, damn, what's this? I remember multiple times I'm like, what is this giveaway? Like, well, it's come to light that a lot of them had an entire bot network that were not only botting the giveaway, botting the tweets, which is kind of like the basic side of this, but they were also botting into Discords, and they were botting the giveaway mechanism. So guess who was winning the giveaways of like the Porsche or the giveaways of the VR headset? It was the agency that was botting the giveaway that got all of us to follow that account, that all of a sudden we got to see their things. And how many pages was in this? 150 some pages in this?
158. 158.
Whoever created this, can we just tip our hat? Like, I have no idea who spent the time to do there, but thank you. Like, you are it's a citizen arrest, a citizen exposure. Yes. I mean, and this was like, this wasn't just like a tweet from the NFT ethics account, right? This was a legit, like, full on exposure report. Apparently there was some, like it happens in all these things, there was one person or 2 people that were inside of this like agency that was doing these nefarious things that decided to kind of expose things. But wow, I mean, maybe it's a good thing that we got it out now in the bear market, because there's not a lot of people that are here to be like shocked by this. But Jordache, I was shocked. Like, when I saw the document, and I was like, woo.
Right. Well, first I saw this come out yesterday, and I was like, yeah, this can't be real. Like, yeah, this is fake. This can't be real. And then I started looking, digging deeper, looking at this, and I'm like, and my first thought was, this sucks, but I'm so not surprised. Like, I'm so not surprised by this. And here's the thing. Once again, tip the hat, because this was some in-depth research. There's screenshots. This ain't just, some text on a paper that this is my thoughts, blah, blah, blah. They took some time to go and follow these paths all down through I'll call it a spider web in a sense, right? And they have multiple projects that leverage their service. I'll call it a service to do this. And here's the thing that sucks, is because 2 things. One, they use people's FOMO against themselves, basically, is what happened right now, right? Because this was when hype marketing was at its fullest, right? I think I saw back, I think it was February of 2022 was when really this stuff started really kicking off, where this network kind of came together and things like that. So we were getting close, a couple months away from, the market really dropping off, but we were still riding high pretty much from that November, December, January high. So there was still a lot of FOMO and hype marketing coming into place. And I think this is a representation of why that is not sustainable in any marketplace, because stuff like this happens and come into place and take advantage of it, right? The thing that really sucks is I'm waiting for it to start getting picked up more on the mainstream. And I think that's going to do a lot of more. It's just kind of like the FTX things, where people that aren't in this space are going to look at it like, yep, told you so. It's a scam. Told you so. This is what I told you. And it's like, once again, this is a group or a small group or an individual of bad actors that were not using anything that we're all about in this space. They were not using the blockchain. They were not, this ain't Sam screwing people on the blockchain. Sam was screwing people that, just like the way that we're trying to avoid, which is understanding having a small group of people having too much control. Same thing here. They just figured out, these people were smart as hell and figured it out how to game the system. And I wish they would just use their intelligence and their skill sets in a more positive light. But they made a ton of money out of this thing, right? Which is where it all comes from. Now, here's the good thing. Okay. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So I just want to paint the picture real quick on, for those that are like, how does this happen, right? So, I am an advisor on a lot of projects. I would say, funny enough, a lot of these people stay away from me. And I think it's just because I have a reputation. I have the podcast where like they're not the ones sliding into my DMs. But as an advisor on a lot of projects, you will not believe the amount of people that are targeting people that are launching a project, that are good people, that are doing all the right things. They're listening to this podcast, they're taking all their notes, but they're approaching them and saying, I know these are the things you need to get over the hump. I'm going to help make them happen. And what I believe when I was looking through that list, I actually believe a lot of those founders didn't partake in the actual buying of this bot network. What they did is they were approached, more than likely, and I've seen this happen. There's 3 projects right off the top of my head that they were approached by 2 people that have a fairly like big name, big persona in this space. And they said, hey, we're going to make these things happen to you. These are the things that we're going to do. We're going to work it. We're going to do everything organic. It's going to be all above board. You pay us 5 ETH now, 10 ETH when we sell out your first thing. And from a founder's perspective, a lot of that sounds really good. And I just want to be clear. I mean, a couple of times I had to look at the founders and say, I won't even be mad at you if you go that way, because they weren't they weren't stepping over the ethical line. They weren't doing anything bad. But I believe what was happening was one step away was that person making those promises would then just hire this bot network and say, hey, I promised them that we would blow up their Discord and drive a crap load of signups. So if I pay you 2 ETH of my 10 ETH that I just got to consult with them for you to blow up these Discords and I meet my threshold and I get my 5 ETH, now I'm going to give you 3 more, right? So like, and I believe that's where this all happens. So like, I'll be interested when that layer gets exposed, because I do believe there are some people that right now are probably not very, they're worried. There's some people that I know that I believe that are worried and
right now.
Because they're like, wait a second, the bot network got exposed. There's just to be clear, in the document, it talks about the projects that used them, but there's not a very talk about like project to hiring bot connection.
Right.
And I believe because it's hard to make that connection. Like, wait, this person never talked to the same person as these other projects. But just wait. I think there's going to be one more domino.
It's going to come out.
Yep.
And that's what I think. I think from a founder's perspective, some of these projects, I'm not angry at these projects. No, right? I don't think that they went and hired a bot. Maybe some of them did, but I would say a majority of them probably didn't. But on the flip side, I thought and we've talked about this before, I believe this is caused by the expectation that only good projects sell out very, very quickly. And I think this is where their founders have a pressure on them that if they want to have a successful project, they have to sell out very, very quickly. And I think that is where they make these decisions, because they're like, well, crap, we're 2 months away from minting and we only have 5,000 people on our Twitter. We need 30,000. We need 50,000. We need, and I know for a fact early on last year, there were ratios being thrown out there by agencies saying, hey, if you want to mint a 10,000 person collection, you need 100,000 people in your Discord, and you're not going to mint out. Right. So now if they don't have the skill sets and somebody slides in their DM says, hey, I can get you 30,000 people in your Discord in 14 days, and they're going to be real people, quote unquote, like they already invested a lot of time and resource. So I think that's where some of these decisions were made. But I think you're right. I think there's some people losing sleep because there was an intermediary that the bot network, was the fulfiller of this agreement, right? They're not the salespeople. These people weren't the ones having Zoom calls or whatever it was with some of these founders, because most of these founders ain't going to give 10, 15 ETH away without having a conversation with a human, right? So like there are people that are probably a little nervous right now, and they should be ashamed of themselves, to be honest with you, because we don't need this. And that's where, like you mentioned earlier, but I'm glad this got exposed. We need this to get exposed. We need this to, it's just like I'm just going to go back to the FTX, get it exposed, rip off the Band-Aid. Let's take the blows. Let's learn from what we've done, and then we're going to recover, and let's get this out the way, right? And so how do we avoid this going forward? And obviously, like, Fanzo, you've been in this social media space for years. Some of these ratios, these likes to retweet ratios on some of this stuff, of course, like you don't, if you have any intelligence in the space, you could be like, yo, there's a 0.00001% chance that this is real, because it just like people are not going to comment or retweet more than they like a post, period.
Yeah.
Like that's against human behavior, right? Like, so it sucks that it's taken this long, but I'm glad it's happened. And hopefully this can rid the industry of this nonsense. And let's get back to one, getting away from these vanity metrics on projects that are successful and what constitutes a successful project, especially around minting. And then two, let's get back to actually foundation building of how to actually build an audience and grow an audience organically or authentically and get the right people into your project. And we don't need to worry about this stuff, right? And that's when it doesn't become a pissing contest of like, here's how I minted out in this long, or it only took me this long, or I got this many people in. It doesn't matter, right? Like that's it should be focused on what are you providing to you? How are you adding value to you? I don't care if you have 10 people in there or if you have 100,000. If you add value, people will come and find you, because that's easy to stand out in this space. So, it sucked reading through this stuff, but at the same time, I'm like, kudos to you, whoever did this research and uncovered this. And I hope all these people that are involved, I hope they all go to NFT hell, wherever that is.
Well, and I have to say, we have to, when I saw that it like February of 2022 popped off as kind of when it started, I was like, oh no, because the people to blame for this are us.
Right.
Because for those that don't remember, November, December, January, there was one thing that we hated more than anything in this space. And it was the idea of grinding a Discord for whitelist and growth.
Yep.
And what we did was we decided to attack the actual, like the action, not the overall problem that we were approaching our version of success or measuring our speculation based on the nonsense vanity that you described. And so what we did is we attacked the action, and some really smart humans said, well, if the public persona says grinding a Discord is against mental health, and it is, and it was atrocious. But what we did was we said, hey, let's bring back in maybe one of the worst behaviors that existed in Web 1 and Web 2, and let's just play on people's greed and desire for free shit. Right. And every giveaway thing that's ever been implemented anywhere, right? Giveaway mechanisms of Facebook, giveaway mechanisms at your church. They've all been monopoly on McDonald's. People figured out how to scam a giveaway of McDonald's.
There's a Netflix show with the jet, right? With the Pepsi Cola with the caps.
Yeah. There's even one for the Price is Right that someone figured out how to gamify the Price is Right to figure out. So like, let's just face it. Like we looked at a problem, and rather than us recognizing, wait a second, just because Bored Ape and Meebits and let's face it, I mean, there was a time where there were some things, right? And then it was manipulated. Like Metaverse came out and they had 400,000 people in their Discord when you can only have 250,000, which didn't even make any sense. But isn't that it? Like when you said something, you're like, how do we prevent this from happening? Right. Well, first of all, we have to recognize giveaways can still exist and be valuable, but we also have to recognize that a giveaway that the requirements is to build a following is part of a manipulation scheme, right? Where like the giveaway to reward your most loyal people and the people that follow up that have 4 PO-ops that show up in your Twitter space, those are beautiful. The other ones where it said, oh my God, that agency said that this group of whales will never mint us unless we have 80,000 followers on Twitter and 100,000 in our Discord. Because guess what? We're still hearing that right now. So we're going to expose this giveaway. And guess what's going to happen? Just like it happened in January of last year, there's some really smart people that are going to be like, how are we going to get people to pay us to hit that vanity metric again, because we're still using that vanity metric. And part of that problem comes back into this, goes full circle, right? Into like, not only we have to do our own damn research, figure out how we trust people, but like things like OpenSea and the information, the stats and the data that we're given, right? Like a floor price, right? Like a floor price does not tell us nearly what people think it's going to tell us. The number of followers people have, not going to tell us. Like I have to give a shout out. There's a project that reached out to me, Guild of the Guardians, and they reached out and they wanted to collab. And I started doing my due diligence and research, and I was like, they are legit been in this space for like 2 years. and they already had a big piece, and I'll talk about them in a future episode that will actually be a sponsored part of it. But the reason I wanted to bring it in was I was doing my research and I was like, they hit a lot of those things, and they realized just hitting those and advertise them make them no better than anyone else. And so they like reset their marketing and reset their content plan. And I was like, woo. The truth of the matter is, though, like these giveaways were the result of all of us kind of like hammering home. And I just hope that we have to recognize that, like, you know, we as humans, not only are we looking for ways to be rewarded, we want to belong. Like, I mean, a lot of this is we want to belong. We want to be a part of something. And we also, when people say they were in a clubhouse room and they got lucky and they minted a Bored Ape, like, let's face it, no one sits around and is like, man, that would suck. I'm glad I wasn't there. Like, you know, like,
right.
like we're all like, wait, when is our Bored Ape moment coming? Right? When are we going to have that? And that's where a lot of this is really preying upon. And so I do hope like we get better at curation, right? Better at our sources for upcoming mints. Like you said, the slow burn. I mean, I think that was episode 8 of season 1 when I called out slow burn. And I won't say that I created the name, but I believe I was one of the first that ever kind of put it out there and made it like, I was like, dude, slow burn projects, ones that don't win out overnight. I was like, I like these. I was like, because 10,000 people jumping in a community in one day is a whole bunch of people that don't know each other, never heard of each other, probably don't like each other, and it's chaos. And I was like, wait, you're building 500 a week? Ooh, I kind of like this, right? And that was what that momentum was back then. But like we have a long way to go. But I will say like the space that like kind of caught my eye recently was the idea of curation, right? So as an AI artist, I was asked to participate in a Foundation Worlds, right? So Foundation has a new thing called Worlds, where you can curate a bunch of artists into one world, and we can all kind of co-promote one collection, yet we all get individually paid by our own individual contract. We own our own individual art. And so I have to give a shout out to Elliot, who approached me via Twitter DMs and said, hey, I found some people that have this, you know, I have this color wave world that I want to create that are artists. Some are AI, some are not, that are creating art that is similar to what, you know, has a flavor of what you are. Would love for you to be a part of this. And it hit me because I was like, we need that in the PFP space. And so what happened was he curated a bunch of artists, and I will tell you, I am I'm on the lower end of the spectrum of the talent of the artists that were included. But interestingly enough, my largest AI art sale happened yesterday in my short 8-month history. And guess how it happened? I have a huge audience, right? I have a podcast. It didn't come through me. It came through a curated experience. So through Foundation, he put all of us artists together, which then allows all of us to share our audiences. And someone bought one of my pieces yesterday for 0.2 ETH, one of my AI art pieces. And I was like blown away, but it hit me because it ties into what we're talking about here. In that realm, if you trust one of the artists there, if you trust the curator, or if you're exposed because it's brought to light in a new way, all of a sudden your research and your whole thing kind of like it has a better light. And you know, if I had to go back and do over season 1 again, I did so much damn research on projects that I probably would have made like every episode. Like instead of me doing evergreen education content, I should have just talked about all the podcasts, all the projects that I was whittling down. I mean, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but like, because if you think about it, like, and Jordache, you and I talk about this, if you're fairly new to this space, where do you find what a good project is or what a not a good project is? I mean, where do you even find where a project's coming out?
Right. Trial and error. That's the downside about this right now, right? Like that's where you have to, you learn on the streets, to be honest with you, these NFT streets. And, you know, one of the things, well, first off, congratulations on the AI art sale. That's much deserved for, I know how much work and effort you put into this, and it's awesome to see you being able to get that. But, you know, what you just said was so spot on because, and we see this, like I see this in my space, right? Like in my business world and things like that. You don't need a big audience to be successful. Like you don't need a huge audience to be able to generate sales. Like that's such a misconception that it's easy to fall into that trap. And I think that story you just told with your foundation and the curation, you borrow that know, like, and trust factor of other people that they bring into your world. And next thing you know, they're like, oh, he likes Brian. He knows Fanzo. I like his artwork. I'm going to buy it from him, kind of thing. Right. And so we can, I think the other thing I was going to say about this whole thing being exposed, things like this, I think this is just another step of our market evolving and us getting a little bit more sophisticated in the market, right? Because like you said, that whole giveaway spiel, every industry went through a giveaway period where that's how people were generating buzz and hype and followings and things like that. And one of the things I will also highlight what you said about that is there's still this fear of missing out for all these people in NFTs right now. I don't want to miss out on the next Bored Ape, right? I need to be in the know. So I need to follow anybody and everybody, every new project comes out, because I don't want to have that shame or that guilt of, damn, I missed the next one. Damn, I missed the next. And so like, that's what they played into that emotion outside of the greed, but it was, and that's unfortunately, hopefully we learn from this moving forward. But the last thing I'll say though too, is I hope this is, and I'm going to tie this back to what we were talking about with the open editions. That model is a lot more effective model of bringing new people into your world than a giveaway is. When you can get your people to give away free open editions of an NFT, and they get you access as a quote unquote free trial or free access for a certain amount of time into your audience or to your world or to the gamification or whatever your project offers, you're going to get a lot more quality people than any giveaway is going to do. And it's funny. It's funny as we're talking about this, dude, I probably started 3 months ago. Anybody, do you want me to stop following you? You want me to block you on Twitter? Add me to a giveaway post. See what happens. Like anybody that gets tagged, I'm like, yo, like, no, nope. I don't care what PFP is. You tag me on that stuff, you are getting blocked and you are not going to be my friend, because it was obnoxious. And you could see they were a lot of these were bots, right? That were just getting tagged. I'm sure you get tagged all the time and stuff. So it's, I think we're coming out of this era of giveaways. First, we were in the era of grinding. Then now we're in the era of giveaways. Who knows what the poison's going to be next? But somebody's going to fill that void. Hopefully, we can identify that quicker, and hopefully, we start moving away from our expectations as users or as collectors or participants in the space of our expectations of projects and what they should be doing in a short amount of time when they launch. That will also alleviate the need for founders to have that pressure to do some of this, to work with some of these shady people that are going to prey on their pressure of minting out, getting a certain follower count or whatever it may be. But yeah, man,
the open edition model only works though if you're actually delivering on the back end, right? Giving people a free trial to unicorns, rainbows, and bullshit, right? It would expose. So like, and I think this is they like to kind of circle this into it for everyone that's like thinking or talking about this, right? Like, there will be more of these things that come up, but we as consumers just have to recognize that those that are willing to prey on that are those that aren't willing to be transparent, that aren't willing to give people a peek behind the curtain, right? Because I was laughing. I'm wearing literally a VFriends giveaway T-shirt. Like literally, I'm wearing a giveaway. We're talking about giveaways, and I'm wearing a giveaway merch right now. But to the point of what CPG, like when I saw CPG did this, right? And I think this is for everyone that's out there. Ask yourself if projects are willing to say, hey, we back up our talk, and here's the proof. And if you want a taste of it, like we're going to give you a taste. Ooh, that's going to set these projects apart compared to those that are like, hey, our Discord, it's blocked off. You don't get it unless you get an NFT. Right. Because let's face it, a lot of those people have that gate up there because they don't want you to know that behind there is a lot of fluffy roadmaps and 100% that aren't delivered, right?
And I think that's going to drive it. That we have to get to that point. We have to start weeding out these projects that aren't delivering, right? And because the reality comes down to that is you're either going to step up or you're going to get stepped on moving forward from a project standpoint. And that's on us as consumers. We need to make sure that there's that expectation, meaning in the way we vote with our wallets, right? Stop buying stuff that doesn't deliver, or if they don't deliver, get the hell out the project, right? So like there's one of these things where we need these mechanisms in place to force projects' hands that they have to deliver. But the other thing I want to just mention real quick though is I don't care if it was a giveaway, I don't care if it was grinding or a giveaway or even this open edition thing. These are all just tactics and strategies, right? You you can't build a successful business for the long term built on strategy or tactics, because then you are always trying to go after what is that shiny new toy. There has to be foundational things built in place, aka pillars, aka principles. You have to build your project on that will be able to sustain anything, any strategy, any tactic that you can actually always fall back on, which one of them is deliver value. If you deliver value, people will stay. If you continue to add value to the people and you reward those people, people will stay and they don't want to leave, and then they will talk about it and then the word will get out. But it's these people that are these projects that are really a house of cards, that they were very, very good at building up hype. They're not going to last long. And I think we just got to get to that next phase where that is the standard. That is the expectation, that if you say you're going to deliver something, you actually deliver it. And hopefully we have to get to that point. And so I'm never upset when things like this happen, because I always look at it from a positive perspective of, awesome, let's wipe out this nonsense, because we got to continue to wipe out this nonsense in this space for us to get back to a spot where we can actually start thriving, which we know the market's going to turn around. So we will start thriving at some point in time. And hopefully a lot of this bad actors and bad strategies and tactics that aren't long-term go to the wayside.
Yep, and in that note, as we're gonna wrap here, we hung out with everybody again for about another 90 minutes. Jordache and I love to.
What is it gonna call in the news for 90? We'll just call that. Let's just lean into it. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, we might have to. I just give a shout out to all of our listeners. We through the fall last year, we were very blessed. Early on, we were seeing growth that I've never seen with a podcast. As the bear market came, there was less listeners that wanted to listen. But in the last 30 days, we have a 28% growth of people listening to the podcast. And I believe that's because many of you that are listeners of the podcast are sharing this out with your friends and family. And you're putting it in your favorite Discord. You're tweeting it out. And I just have to say, that's part of this, right? We have to celebrate those that we're learning from, the good projects. And so I just want to say, kudos to all of our listeners. Kudos to the amazing co-hosts that we've been able to bring on, kind of playing with formats, changing up things, trying things out. And, and I think just got to keep on that, right? So we appreciate everybody, commenting on the YouTube videos, sharing things out on social, every little one of those help, get this message out, get things socialized as well. And lastly, I just have to say, the NFL isn't rigged. No, the NFL is definitely not rigged. The space that exists in there are startups that are going to fail. There are companies that have to fail departments, like Coinbase is rolling back their NFTs. That's just part of this world. Businesses fail, startups fail. They pivot the wrong direction. That's good and all well. But we also have to be very clear when things are exposed or things are rigged. If they were rigged or exposed because of the blockchain technology or because of the tokenomics that existed, and I've yet to find one that has been on that side of the fence. There has been greed. There has been the giveaway world, the grinding world, the preying on mental health, people's lack of self-awareness or self-care. All of these things have existed in the world since the beginning of time. We just have to be very careful and make sure that we educate people on that, because with all of the news that comes out, it's FTX, all of those things. It's not the technology failing. It's actually the opposite. If the giveaways were on the blockchain, we would have sniffed out this thing miles ago. And so 100%. Just putting that out there for everyone that's listening. Jordache, this was awesome. Another great time. Always. We start off with 4 topics, and then 90 minutes later, we rock out. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for sharing it out. Make sure you follow Jordache, of course. Make sure you're following the podcast. If you have questions, comments, thoughts you would love to hear for us to cover, hit us up on the socials. And if you are a newer listener, if you haven't been listening for that long and you haven't left us a review over on Apple iTunes, that's our social currency. That allows us to get more people, more eyeballs. Apple will put it out to more people, more sponsors that will come through to be a part of this. So Jordache, this was fun. Again, we started with 4 topics. We're like, we'll see how this goes. And we can jam out for a long time. So thanks, my friend.
Always, man. Appreciate you, bud.
All right, everybody. Until next time, make it a great day. Cheers.